Part 41. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mishita D. Chapter 402. Katrina. Occupation, great artist. As if she felt two naked gazes. Katrina looked sideways. Ahem. Gao Qiang coughed twice. Facing Katrina's undisguised body. He finally understood why many people said that as long as they were not embarrassed, others would be embarrassed. Could it be that this was the art he could not understand? Lord, you are interesting. Katrina chuckled and hooked her finger at the person next to her. Soon, someone came forward with a white gauze and draped it over Katrina's body. But even so, it was difficult to cover Katrina's exposed skin. Have you seen enough? Katrina glanced at Vian and said, I don't want to be stared at by someone who doesn't understand art. Tisk Vian rolled his eyes, there is only one art in my heart, and that is war. Of course, I didn't come here to quarrel with you today. Vian stared at Katrina and said bluntly, we need your strength, so, do something. Katrina turned around and covered the smile on her mouth with the gauze blown by the wind. So this is why you kidnapped the Lord. I thought you would understand me better. You know, the thinking of a great artist always seems to be unique, and no one can interfere with the decision-making of a great artist. Gao Qiang stood between Vian and Katrina awkwardly. He knew that if he didn't cater to his preferences before awakening, it would be difficult for him to command most of the people in the territory. This was also the first time he met Katrina. If Wei Yan expected that he could call her to do something, he might be disappointed. Suddenly, an unexpected voice sounded from behind Gao Qiang. Hey, Sister Painter, why are you here? Hearing this voice, Katrina's expression was flustered. Wait. Unfortunately, it was too late. Gao Qiang saw a figure passing by him and threw Katrina to the ground. The gauze draped over Katrina fell to the side. And Huan's hero, who had followed secretly, rubbed Katrina's body. After taking a deep breath of Katrina's fragrance, Huan's hero smiled and showed a small tiger tooth. I thought Uncle Wei Yan would take the Lord somewhere, but I didn't expect there would be an unexpected surprise. Right, Xiaobai. After hearing this, Gao Qiang turned around and found that Xiaobai, who was carrying several weapons, was standing far away, keeping a safe distance from him. You bastard sold me out again. After Bai Hexia cursed Huan's hero, he was too embarrassed to look in Katharina's direction, and could only turn his head away with a red face. I'm just taking a walk, Lord, don't think too much. I'm definitely not afraid that Wei Yan will take you to some ditch and kill you, really. Wait. Feeling something wrong, Wei Yan stood in front of Gao Qiang, blocking Bai Hexia's vision, but his face was full of confusion and innocence. What do you think of me? Huan's hero thought for 3 seconds, and then said firmly, a heinous demon who kills people without mercy. Bai Hexia gave another answer, a warmonger who will do anything for the sake of war. Oh, I think I understand. Katharina picked up Huan's hero, gently put her on the ground, and then showed a look of sudden enlightenment. Roer and Xiaobai are probably worried that you will use the Lord as the fuse to start a war, right? The Lord's death will make most people lose face and burn with anger. I have to say, Wei Yan, this is really a genius idea full of art. Facing the three people singing the same tune. Wei Yan's brows darkened, I just stopped a war, okay. If you want to talk about war-loving people, a lord who only wants to declare war and doesn't care about anything else is more of a bastard, okay. Of course, Wei Yan didn't say this out loud. He just looked at Gao Qiang, as if he wanted Gao Qiang to explain himself. Gao Qiang moved a step towards Katrina's position. Are you serious about taking a step back? It took a lot of effort for Wei Yan to prove that at least this time, he really didn't want to use Gao Qiang's death to start a bigger war. I can see from your eyes that you will definitely do it next time, Huan's hero said seriously. She pointed at her eyes with 2 fingers, and then at Weian. Don't try to fool me. My eyes are my ruler. Your traditional villain ideas are all written in the game. That's why I hate people who treat war as a game. Vian sighed and looked at Katrina, who was already smiling. What the little guy said is not true. You should know why I came to you. Seeing Vian's eyes, Katrina reluctantly retracted her smile. You want to lure that guy out. What else? Vian asked back. Katrina sighed, if it were usual, I wouldn't accompany you to do those meaningless things. But you are lucky, today is an exception. Since the Lord, Rower and Ziobai are all here, it's not impossible for everyone to appreciate the real art. Saying this, Katrina stood up and walked behind her with a white veil. The moment she stood up, many men and women wearing off-shoulder shawls came forward with buckets of colorful oil painting dyes. And Katrina walked through the crowd, letting the white veil on her body be stained with disordered colors in the paint bucket. Soon, the originally flawless white veil became dirty. The people carrying dyes around left with the dyes and sat in a suitable position in the distance. The moonlight gradually rose in the sky. Under Gao Qiang's gaze, Katrina suddenly threw the gauze, and the whole person danced in the moonlight. In the dim light, countless dyes were splashed on the ground as Katrina danced. Woo! When Gao Qiang was watching intently, he heard a whimpering sound coming from his arms. He looked down. Baihexia buried his whole face in Gao Qiang's arms, and his exposed ears had already turned red. Gao Qiang immediately understood. After all, Ziobai is still just a child. It is indeed too exciting to watch this kind of dance at this age. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang did not drive Baihexia out of his arms. But he was a little curious about what role Katrina's art would play in the future. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 403. Chapter 403. After all, so far, apart from the fact that the dance is really beautiful, the dye splashed on the ground does not form a pattern. All Gao Qiang could see was a garbled word. The colorful dyes are intertwined in a completely chaotic attitude, a little bit, there are lines, but it is difficult to tell that it is a painting. In Gao Qiang's view, the pattern created by Catalina does not have any of the elements that should be included in a traditional painting. At this time, as the moonlight was shrouded in clouds, Katrina also stopped dancing. Throwing the dyed long yarn on the spot, Katrina changed into another piece of clothing before standing in front of Gao Qiang again. How's my art? Listening to Katrina's straightforward question, Gao Qiang gave an affirmative answer, it's beautiful. Forgive him for not being a professional art connoisseur. As long as someone asks him how he is, thousands of words can only be condensed into one beautiful sentence in Gao Qiang's mouth. Fortunately, Gao Qiang's performance wasn't too bad. Because on the other side, Weian was more straightforward. Can't read. Katrina helplessly raised her forehead, forget it, I didn't have much expectations. After all, there are too few people who can truly understand art. Well, if it's convenient, can you explain it to us? Gao Qiang said with a smile. Since it is the Lord's request. Katrina nodded, then stretched out her finger to point at the disordered dye on the ground behind her. I call my masterpiece Starry Sky. Congratulations, your great artist has created the masterpiece Starry Sky /. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 404. A planet just disappeared? Feng Zhou touched his forehead. He didn't have a fever. Is he still dreaming? But Gao Qiang's disappearance might not be bad news. Feng Zhou rolled his eyes. In this case, he only needs to pretend to have completed Song Dijun's task, and then find a corner to hide. No matter what happens next, it has nothing to do with him. Order the fleet to conduct a carpet search. The appearance still needs to be done. Feng Zhou's order was passed to the various detachments of the 7th Fleet. Soon, one starship after another started the cruise mode and conducted a covering search according to the approximate coordinates given by the inside plan. However, the search had not been carried out for long, and the inside plan took the initiative to call Feng Zhou again. The planet you are going to reappear in the radar signal, located at the current coordinates of 27 astronomical units. Are you sure that the coordinates you recorded earlier are correct? Feng Zhou did not contact the fleet immediately, but first confirmed with the inside plan. It seems normal for a planet to move within a galaxy. This is true for ordinary galaxies, and even more so for chaotic and disordered thousand-star systems. But Feng Zhou always felt that something was wrong. He leaned his chin on the console, and there was an inexplicable thought in his mind, but he couldn't say it out loud. In the previous observation, Gao Qiang's planet seemed to be stationary. If the other party is currently in the Renaissance era as the inside plan said, there should be no power to move planets. No, it should be said that in this era, there is no technology that can move planets. So, is the planet that suddenly appeared 27 away an illusion? Feng Zhou narrowed his eyes. Suppose he is the commander of the opposite side and has the ability to create illusions, how would he use it? There are so many options to make. For example, disguise a Zerg nest planet as his own. In this way, the enemy who attacks him is actually on the road to hell. If it was the 3 heroes of the Song family, they might have been deceived. It's a pity that they met me. Feng Zhou's eyes flickered. He did not issue any extra orders, which showed his attitude. Do you plan to stay here? Inside plan reminded. Excuse me, according to my system, there is no trace that can be detected here. It doesn't matter whether there are any clues or not. Feng Zhou shook his head. Our purpose from the beginning was not to obey Song Dijun's orders completely. It's better to say that there are no clues. After the voice fell, Feng Zhou suddenly saw on the screen in front of him that the communication with all the ships of the 7th Fleet was interrupted. At the same time, an anxious report came from the bridge. Captain, the flagship is suffering from unknown light interference, and all detection equipment has entered a disabled state. We are blind now. What? Feng Zhou stood up suddenly, and the alarm bell in his heart kept ringing. On the other side, the entire 7th Fleet was also in chaos. Flagship, please reply if you hear me. Damn it, we lost contact with the flagship. The ugly faces of the lords appeared in the communication channel. After confirming that the flagship suddenly disappeared under everyone's eyes, the lords looked at each other. This is unreasonable, right? How could the flagship, which was clearly not attacked and was the best protected, disappear quietly like this? Investigate. Even if we turn this star field upside down, we must find Lord Feng Zhou. The disappearance of a senior executive in the consortium was a heavy blow to the direct forces of the consortium. At the same time, the information about Feng Zhou's disappearance was also passed to Song Dijun's heirs. It's even more useless than I thought. Song Dijun didn't have much emotional fluctuations about Feng Zhou's failure. Unlike the lower-level lords, Song Dijun didn't have any idea of rescuing Feng Zhou when he disappeared. Anyway, the other party took the initiative to take this task, and it didn't die in his hands. It had nothing to do with him in terms of emotion and reason. It would be better to say, good death. A fierce look flashed in Song Dijun's eyes. He had been unhappy with Feng Zhou, a guy who could not be used as a pawn by him. Now if Feng Zhou really died in Gao Qiang's hands, and left the complete 7th Fleet, wouldn't that be a happy ending for everyone? Thinking of this, Song Dijun ordered his subordinate lords. Help me send condolences to the 7th Fleet and commemorate the outstanding contribution made by Manager Feng to the consortium. If the situation is appropriate, ask them again. Are you willing to merge into the 1st Fleet directly under my command? Yes. The Lord on the side took the order and stepped aside, and began to contact the relationship within the 7th Fleet. When all parties were taking action, Gao Qiang was awakened from his sleep by a whistling sound. Who turned the electric fan to the highest gear? Rubbing his eyes, Gao Qiang asked the people around him. But why is it so hot today? While talking, Gao Qiang suddenly found that the scene in front of him was slightly red. The others had already woken up from their sleep, staring straight at the sky. Following the gazes of the others, Gao Qiang was stunned for a moment. A huge starship was impacting the atmosphere above Ideal City. The starship did not change the space cruise mode, and it was not in a normal landing or forced landing posture at all. It looked more like it was going to hit the ground directly, using its own hull to create a gorgeous explosion, to fight Gao Qiang to the death. Now, because of contact with the atmosphere, the starship has been burned red, and the hot breath has hit Gao Qiang's face from a distance. What kind of hatred is this, so big? In such a moment of daze, the starship has already broken through the atmosphere, exposing the hull to the air of Ideal City. At this time, in the flagship of the 7th Fleet, the radar facilities in front of Fengzhou suddenly started working again. He just felt that his vision was suddenly clear. I'm afraid it won't be long before it collides with the ground. What a cause for celebration! What a head! Fengzhou slapped the console fiercely, as if he was hitting the body of the Insight project. Didn't you say there was nothing here? What's the situation now? Why was it fine just now, but if I open my eyes again, I will be killed along with it? Say something, say something. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 405. It was too close to the ground. After passing through the atmosphere at full speed, even if Fengzhou ordered to slow down now, it would never be possible to make a successful forced landing. Could it be that he would die here today? What's the difference between crashing into a planet and falling to death while walking on the stairs? I, Fengzhou, have just started a glorious life, but I didn't expect it to end here. As he spoke, 2 tears of grief flowed from the corners of Fengzhou's eyes. Just when Fengzhou thought he was going to die, the Insight plan appeared in front of him as expected. A survival plan has been formulated, with an estimated loss of hull, 79%, and an estimated survival rate, 100%. Do you want to execute it? Yes. Fengzhou slapped his palms hard on the console to confirm. When facing a life and death issue, who would care about how much the hull is lost? Authorized, taking over the hull. As the voice of the Insight plan fell, all the crew members in the bridge who were trying to control the ship found that their operations at the moment were completely ineffective. At present, they no longer have the authority to operate the starship. At this time, the starship's energy warehouse, ammunition warehouse, and material warehouse were all opened, and all items that might cause a violent explosion were abandoned and thrown out of the starship. Looking at the flames rising from the surface of the Ideal City behind, Fengzhou couldn't help but feel a little scared. The 7th Fleet originally used planetary bombing as the basic plate of the fleet. As the flagship of the 7th Fleet, he naturally carried a lot of explosives. If those explosives exploded directly in the ship body due to the impact when they landed, the consequences would be disastrous. Amount of baggage abandoned, 100%. Closing the sealed valve. Filling with inert gas. Shutting down the secondary energy. Looking for a gentle forced landing site. The target has been confirmed, please take personal safety protection measures, and the forced landing will start soon. At this moment, the entire flagship is dim, and all unnecessary cabins have been cut off from energy, which further reduces the probability of secondary explosion. At the same time, all unmanned cabins have closed the sealed valves, draining all oxygen and filling them with inert gas that is not easy to burn. Feng Zhou looked at the suitable landing site marked by the InSight plan, which seemed to be a flat rocky terrain. And on the ground, in Gao Qiang's eyes, it became a starship falling from the sky and rushing straight towards him. Is it really coming towards him? Lord, please get out of the way. Wei Yan frowned and stood up to block Gao Qiang. However, Gao Qiang looked around. Due to the characteristics of the ideal city, this rocky area is too flat, without even a trace of ups and downs. In such a terrain, even if he wanted to hide, where could he hide? Forget it, it's too late. Wei Yan pulled Gao Qiang and lifted his cloak to completely cover Gao Qiang's figure. At this time, the starship finally touched the ground. With a violent collision and a shaking of the earth, countless broken starship fragments splashed around like shells. Because he was stopped by Wei Yan behind him, Gao Qiang did not face the shock wave of the starship directly. After all the smoke and dust cleared, Gao Qiang breathed a sigh of relief after seeing that everyone around him was fine. Fortunately, the starship did not directly hit the crowd, otherwise it would be unknown how many people would be left. At this time, Wei Yan suddenly coughed heavily. Gao Qiang looked in the direction of Wei Yan's sound, and saw a sharp fragment piercing Wei Yan's lower abdomen. Blood was slowly flowing down the edge of the fragment, like a tiny stream flowing. Are you okay? Gao Qiang asked uncertainly. It's okay. As he spoke, Wei Yan pulled out the fragment from his lower abdomen. It's just a minor injury. Rather, instead of focusing on me, you might as well look up and look ahead. On a real battlefield, you won't have the opportunity to care about your comrades around you. After saying that, Wei Yan threw the fragment away and looked straight at the location where the starship fell. The starship just now did not explode due to the impact. In this way, based on his experience, most of the people on this starship should be able to survive. Gao Qiang breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that Wei Yan was really fine. At this time, the smoke and dust raised by the fall slowly dissipated. It was visible to the naked eye that the front half of the starship was completely deformed due to the impact. At this time, a strange sound came from the remaining intact parts. Backup energy starts. Emergency escape hatch opens. The next moment, a small hatch opened, and Feng Zhou's somewhat embarrassed figure walked out with the help of the adjutant. Because he was in the front half of the starship, Feng Zhou was more or less injured. Fortunately, the operation of the InSight plan was very perfect, and there was no violent explosion inside the starship. Otherwise, Feng Zhou's life would not be enough to go in. The manager is really lucky. The adjutant supported Feng Zhou while nagging in Feng Zhou's ear. Why do you care about that song guy? If anything happens to you, how can I explain it to Mr. Feng? Manager, why don't you say anything? Feeling Feng Zhou stop, the adjutant, who noticed something was wrong, raised his head and looked at Gao Qiang and others. Looking at the obviously unfriendly eyes on the other side, Feng Zhou laughed awkwardly twice. I'm just passing by. I won't bother you. I'm leaving first. Wait. Gao Qiang called Feng Zhou. You can't leave yet. Besides, where do you want to go? At this time, a group of people had stepped forward and vaguely surrounded Feng Zhou and the other person in the center. Want to run away after hitting someone? How can this be possible in this world? Feng Zhou's face changed several times. He could see that everyone should not have any weapons at the moment. If he was under the protection of the 7th Fleet, he would definitely not be afraid of everyone present. But if it was now, just when Feng Zhou was thinking about whether to be a hero in the face of the times, he saw the adjutant who was supporting him let go of him and blocked him in front of him. Manager, I will protect you. Hey, don't be impulsive. Feng Zhou fell to the ground with his butt, but subconsciously wanted to grab the adjutant. He didn't understand why the adjutant, who used to be timid and cowardly in front of others, became so tough today. However, the adjutant responded by slapping his hand away. Manager, you don't seem to have asked about my personal talent. My personal talent is to rush to help. Rush to help. Effect: when you are alone and encounter a threat, your subjects will sense your position and move towards you as quickly as possible. As the adjutant completely cut off his relationship with Feng Zhou, Feng Zhou heard a burst of violent footsteps behind him. Then, a large number of elite Marines wearing black mobile armor ran out of the evacuation passage with high-energy machine guns and stood behind the adjutant. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 406. The adjutant waved his hand, and hundreds of elite Marines quickly changed formations to protect the two of them. Seeing this, Feng Zhou also patted the dust off his body and stood up calmly, without any trace of panic. Although there were many people surrounding him, they didn't seem to have any weapons, so they were probably no match for the fully armed Marines. Well, did I just say anything? Feng Zhou shook his head and took back all the embarrassing words he had just said. This guy. Gao Qiang felt Feng Zhou's rapidly changing mentality and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This guy changes his face really quickly. However, did he crash down from the sky just to show himself how to change his face? The price he paid was a bit too high. Okay, let's stop here. The adjutant stood in front of the Marines. He had never seen Gao Qiang, but based on the way everyone was vaguely protecting Gao Qiang in the center, he could guess that Gao Qiang had a high status on this planet. Therefore, he put on a relatively special posture and explained to Gao Qiang, please believe that our arrival is just an accident. My name is Lian Wenqing, and I am the Chief Secretary of Feng Dong of Bai Group. Now, we have no intention of being enemies with you. We just hope that you can keep our distance from us, and we will leave soon. This is also our only request. If you don't want to. Lian Wenqing glanced at the position of the Marines. The high-energy machine guns raised in the hands of the Marines have already shown their attitude. Wait. Gao Qiang interrupted Lian Wenqing's words, did you just mention the Bai Group? After saying this, Gao Qiang looked at Lian Wenqing with a playful expression. Anyone who says keep your distance from us can believe it. But Lian Wenqing reported the name of the Bai Group at the beginning, which is a bit of a cover-up. He had no connection with the Bai Group in the past, and no grudges today, so he also gave the Bai Group many chances. But the facts proved that the Bai Group was determined to kill him. If Lian Wenqing and others were not here to kill him, why would they appear here now? It seems that you and us must fight a battle. Lian Wenqing's face was a little ugly. Feng Zhou clenched his fists, wanting to help, but he didn't know what to do. In this battle, his strength depended on the crashed starship behind him. After the starship crashed, he was like a tiger with its teeth pulled out and a crab without its shell. His position was as embarrassing as it could be. Even the hundreds of Marines in Wenqing's hands who were useless in the galaxy battlefield were much more useful than he was now. In this situation, if a fight really broke out, it would definitely be something that neither of them wanted to see. Just as the Marine's finger slowly touched the trigger and the war was about to break out, Katrina suddenly yawned and walked up from behind Gao Qiang. The rather open clothes made Feng Zhou unable to move his eyes for a while. And Katrina just slowly extended a finger. First of all, I must declare that your arrival is not an accident. As the creator of the masterpiece Starry Sky, Katrina, the culprit, knows the reason why Feng Zhou and others fell. Obviously, Starry Sky deviated the position of Ideal City that can be observed by the outside world through the refraction of light. During this period, the real position of Ideal City was completely transparent and unobservable in the eyes of the outside world. Therefore, even if Feng Zhou was just driving normally, he would have crashed into the atmosphere of Ideal City unknowingly. Of course, Katrina came out, not to apologize. She quickly extended the second finger. You destroyed my masterpiece, do you want to just walk away like this? The hard work of a great artist is a rare treasure that is worth 1,000 gold. Since you are businessmen, then you tell me, what do you owe us for the debt you owe us? Seeing Feng Zhou and the others silent, Katrina knew that this was destined to be a question without an answer. So she sighed softly. Sometimes, I prefer to talk in a civilized way rather than use force. Lord, I will temporarily take away Weian's command. At this moment, Weian covered his wound and retreated to the side. Seeing that Weian himself did not say anything, Gao Qiang simply nodded. Immediately afterwards, several golden characteristics appeared in the panel of Katrina in front of Gao Qiang. Humanistic spirit. Introduction: thoughts are just shackles that bind us, and knowledge and art will bring the final answer. Effect: when this unit is the leader, the loyalty of all enemy units cannot be constant, and even the full loyalty will have a risk of falling. Individualism. Introduction: we use oil paintings to paint the darkness of the old times. From now on, even the gods in the sky cannot violate personal will. Effect: when this unit is the leader, the speed at which the loyalty of all enemy units decreases increases by 200%. No more ignorance. Introduction: they always think that stronger swords and guns can make us surrender, but from the moment of enlightenment, we have become individuals equal to them. Effect: for the sake of fairness, when this unit is the leader, the power of the weapons used by the enemy infantry units cannot exceed the basic power of our strongest weapons. Swords and guns can make tigers and wolves retreat, but they cannot stop the spirit from advancing. Saying words that no one could understand, Katrina walked towards the Marines with bare hands. Finally, when Katrina was very close to everyone, Lian Wenqing could no longer bear it. He didn't dare to bet whether the other party had hidden any weapons. If the other party suddenly attacked and killed Feng Zhou, he couldn't afford the consequences. Therefore, since Gao Qiang was unwilling to keep his distance from them, let's fight. Fire! 2222. With Lian Wenqing's order, the Marines ruthlessly pressed the triggers of their guns. Light blue flames emerged from the muzzles, and countless fast energy spheres flew out, sweeping Katrina and the land around her. However, when the high-energy machine gun ammunition actually hit Katrina's body, it only exploded a ball of light blue electric sparks, and did not even penetrate her skin. See, this is the power of the spirit. Katrina walked forward step by step under the countless bullets. Swords and guns cannot make the free individual soul succumb. When she faced the enemy's firepower with her bare hands, the enemy was the most, and she could only exert the power of her bare hands. This is the art called fairness. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shi De. Chapter 407. That bastard, what happened? In the hands of the Marines, the barrel of the high-powered machine gun turned red due to overheating. Looking at Katrina, who was still approaching, big beads of sweat were already falling on the rough face under the helmet. After eating so many rounds of bullets, even the elite units of the Zerg will be burned to ashes, right? Why does the other party act like a perfectly fine person? Give me. The calm voice brought the Marine back to his senses. Only then did he realize that Katrina had walked up to him and gently patted his shoulder with one hand. That beautiful face was clearly close at hand, but the Marine couldn't feel any desire. Strange, monster. The high-powered machine gun clattered to the rocky ground. The Marine's legs also weakened and he collapsed to the ground. That's okay. Katrina stepped over the Marine without a care. By the way, I'll give you a piece of advice. Everyone is an individual, and you don't have to be loyal to anyone but yourself. Am I right? Yes, yes. The Marine who fell to the ground did not dare to speak against Katrina. But after coming back to his senses, an inexplicable thought came to his mind. Why on earth should these territorial citizens who were recruited for war games remain loyal to their lords? Why? At this moment, he felt as if his mind was light. He has awakened. Snap, snap. One by one, the Marines threw their firearms on the ground and slowly raised their hands in a gesture of surrender. Since each of them is an independent individual, they must naturally be responsible for their own safety. Facing an enemy that is difficult to defeat, surrender is the best option to protect oneself. Under the gaze of countless eyes around her, Katrina walked up to Lian Wenqing. "You don't look scared." Katrina looked at Lian Wenqing curiously, which was different from other Marines. After seeing Katrina taking on the firepower net of hundreds of machine guns, Lian Wenqing did not move back. "Because my death is not a pity." As he spoke, a device suddenly fell out of Lian Wenqing's sleeve, and then high-energy beams were excited from both ends of the device, forming a double-edged sword composed of light blades. "Can you stop this thing?" Lian Wenqing leaned forward and turned the lightsaber in his hand in an arc, wiping it towards Katrina's neck. Almost no one knows that his path to becoming a lord is actually that of a warrior who has reached the 6th level. Warrior is supposed to be one of the easiest ways to enter. Except for lords like Gao Qiang who almost never come into contact with combat, the other lords have more or less triggered this path unintentionally. But it is precisely because it is too ordinary. A cheap name, and a bonus that only works on itself. In war games, which usually involve group battles, lords who become warriors are rarer than giant pandas in the zoo. Almost no one would choose this path. Of course, he is the exception. Whoosh! The lightsaber slashed along Katrina's neck. Katrina took a step back slightly, dodging Lian Wenqing's attack. Due to the effect of no longer obscuring, the total damage a high-powered machine gun can cause with one magazine is about the same as a punch from an ordinary person. Even the lightsaber in Lian Wenqing's hand can only function as a wooden stick at most. But Katrina felt a hint of threat from the lightsaber that could hardly pose a threat to her. "Did you escape?" Even after Lian Wenqing finished speaking, his movements did not stop. He continued to stand up and move forward, approaching Katrina. Of course he could see that Katrina had the ability to reduce weapon damage. But as a warrior, even with the weakest weapons, he can explode with power far beyond that of ordinary people. After all, the Lord path is the only fair thing in war games. Innately destined personal talents, as well as acquired random territory types, will become an insurmountable gap between various lords. But the Lord path is always equal. The actual bonuses received by 6th level warriors are no different from those of 6th level angels, kings, and even miracles. But he doesn't have any special abilities. There are only increasing speed, strength, and physique, which are meaningless values in the eyes of other lords. Lian Wenqing's movements became faster and faster, and the eyes of the surrounding Marines who were gradually surrendering couldn't keep up with his pace. They were convinced that even the mechanical guards equipped for the Marines before the flagship crashed could not match Lian Wenqing's current extreme speed in overclocking mode. Indeed, in the interstellar battlefield, my existence has little meaning. But my original purpose was just to be entrusted by Director Feng to take good care of his children. As he spoke, Lian Wenqing raised the light blade in his hand, and the stronger ion beam directly formed the image of a huge long knife in mid-air. "I have a mission to protect someone. So, do you want to try it?" Lian Wenqing pointed to Katrina. "If you die here, who else can protect the person you want to protect?" "I surrender." A sudden sound came between Lian Wenqing and Katrina. Lian Wenqing's expression froze and he quickly turned his head to look. But Feng Zhou raised his hands and smiled bitterly. Gao Qiang was standing behind Feng Zhou at this moment, and there were a group of Marines with weak willpower standing beside Gao Qiang, pointing their guns at Feng Zhou's back. As for those Marines with strong willpower, Lian Wenqing's eyes turned. When he just chased Katrina, the Marines had already fallen to the ground. Bihexio clapped his hands and stood up from the ground. "You are too slow, I've finished and you're just starting. Or do you want me to do it for you?" As soon as the voice fell, Bihexio approached Lian Wenqing. This guy, how could he be faster than him? Lian Wenqing's brain was spinning rapidly, but his body nerves could not keep up with the instructions of the brain. He is a 6th level warrior, the purest attribute bonus, but now he is not as fast as a child. In a brief moment of unconsciousness, the light blade in Lian Wenqing's hand had been taken away by Bihexio and placed across his neck. "Slow down." If Katrina's voice hadn't arrived in time, Lian Wenqing would have been beheaded. Katrina pointed to the ground. "Kill him from a distance, don't pollute my art." In Katrina's eyes, the falling of the starship had already destroyed the original beauty of the starry sky. If Lian Wenqing died here, it would be no less than adding another stain to the starry sky. "I have suffered enough from the blood shed by someone." While speaking, Katrina rolled her eyes at Wei An, who was resting in the distance. "Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire?" Author, Mi Shi Di. Chapter 408. Such vicious words. Wei An, who was lying innocently, moved the hand covering the wound to the position of his heart. The ejected starship fragments only pierced his lower abdomen, but Katrina's words directly pierced his heart. Is his blood really that dirty? However, no one here paid any attention to Wei An's sad look. Bihexio moved the light blade away and nodded to Katrina. "Then I'll take it away first and then dispose of it." Wait. Seeing the situation, Feng Zhou quickly shouted out to stop Bihexio's movements. "I still have something to say." Bihexio turned around and glanced at Gao Qiang. Seeing Gao Qiang nodding, he stopped and prepared to hear what Feng Zhou wanted to say. Well. Feng Zhou scratched his head awkwardly, as if thinking about his worth. Although it was his first time to enter a war game, he was still involved in the consortium. He naturally knows that if he falls into the hands of others, others will not let him go easily. Suddenly, Feng Zhou punched his palm with one hand. "I thought of it. Actually, I can join you." As the manager airborne from above, the 7th Fleet he controls is naturally full of lords who are close to him. Within the 7th Fleet, Feng Zhou has much greater say than Song Dijun. "I know Song Dijun wants to kill you. As long as you take us as hostages, you can easily get help from the 7th Fleet." Feng Zhou sold everything he was worth without hesitation. Of course he knows that being a hostage is not a good thing. But as long as he can survive until the final settlement, when the war game calculates the weight, his experience as a hostage will not be checked. "Let me think." Gao Qiang rubbed his chin and began to think about Feng Zhou's proposal. In fact, judging from the current situation, the time that the degeneration theory can be maintained is 1 week at the fastest and 2 weeks at the slowest. If he wants to kill himself, this is the last chance for the Time Lord. Song Dijun's big move should be coming soon. It's not that Gao Qiang thought he would lose. But what can be seen with the naked eye is that as the high-strength technology tree and era gradually degrade, the attack range of the people under his command is also reduced. In the previous industrial era, planetary orbits could be taken into account, but now it is difficult to do so in the Renaissance era. If we go back to ancient times, if we want spears to penetrate starships in the sky, technology will have to cycle through tens of thousands of levels, right? Without personal experience, Gao Qiang doesn't know what his technology tree will look like after returning to ancient times. "I have to say, your proposal is indeed very exciting." Gao Qiang nodded to Feng Zhou. Even if a group of free human shield fleets cannot defeat Song Dijun, as long as they delay the opponent for 2 weeks, the battle will probably be over. Seeing that Gao Qiang was planning to relent, Feng Zhou once again made an offer that Gao Qiang could not refuse. "My flagship carries a copy of Pioneer technology, which knows the information about the person behind Song Di-jun. Feng Zhou didn't lie about this. In his opinion, it is good that the inside plan does know the relevant information, but whether the inside plan can tell it depends on Gao Qiang's own ability. Now that Feng Zhou had finished telling all about his value, he looked at Gao Qiang quietly, waiting for Gao Qiang's final answer. Let him go. Gao Qiang waved to Bai Hexiu. Gao Qiang had already made his attitude clear without ordering Lian Wenqing to be killed. Feng Zhou's worth saved them all. What you said is indeed very attractive. Gao Qiang looked at Feng Zhou in front of him. Now, take me to see the pioneer technology you mentioned. This is an opportunity. If Harbinger technology does have information about the Time Lords, so, can we understand the other party's weakness and take revenge for Ixer and others? In the last battle, if Eternity hadn't intervened to disrupt the situation, everything should have gone very smoothly. There is no way Ahil will die, and Yena will never return to the mother tree. Gao Qiang shook his head. He had always wanted to be separated from them before, but now he was reluctant to leave them. Feng Zhou glanced at Gao Qiang in surprise. The emotions revealed unintentionally cannot be faked. Is there some story between Gao Qiang and Song Di-jun that he doesn't know about? Now that he was out of the life and death crisis, an instinctive emotion called eating melons came to Feng Zhou's heart. With the mentality of watching a show, Feng Zhou walked to the evacuation passage again. Come with me, the pioneer technology I'm talking about is in my command room. Well, I should be almost knocked to pieces now. Gao Qiang nodded and quickly followed Feng Zhou's footsteps. As for the rebel marines, they were left where they were. They can betray Feng Zhou once, but they can betray Gao Qiang a second time. When staying in a narrow confined space with Feng Zhou, Gao Qiang would not dare to take this group of people with him. On the other side, Gao Qiang's back was about to disappear through the safety door of the evacuation passage. Huan's hero and Bai Hexiu quickly chased after them and followed Gao Qiang's back into the starship. Your Majesty Commander, won't you follow? Katrina looked at Lian Wenqing and asked Wei Yan next to her. Me, Wei Yan pointed at himself and shook his head with a smile. The Lord has his own blessings, why should I follow him? Katrina nodded, then changed the subject. I now believe Xiao Bai's words a little bit. What? Wei Yan asked subconsciously. You wish the Lord would die in a corner? No, I'm not, I didn't. Wei Yan shook his head and denied 3 times. Besides, didn't you follow him either? Vian stared at Katrina. The starship fell with a loud noise, and I don't know how many people were attracted to it. In theory, Katrina didn't need to look at Lian Wenqing at all, and she could just catch up with Gao Qiang. I'm different. Katrina shook her head. As a great artist, I am not good at fighting. Only art that is created unintentionally is the most dazzling. I will not stop this process, nor will I deliberately create bloody art for anyone. That's because you don't understand the greatness of the art of war. After Wei Yan's last argument, he looked at the safety door of the evacuation passage and fell into silence. At this moment, Gao Qiang followed Feng Zhou in the corridor inside the wreckage of the starship. The side wall of the corridor has been severely deformed due to the impact. It is a blessing in disguise that it can still pass. During the journey, Gao Qiang also saw that many crew members or marines were isolated behind many doors. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 409. Aren't you going to save them? Gao Qiang asked curiously. Behind these doors, there are dozens or even hundreds of people. If Feng Zhou rescued them all, then Gao Qiang would not have seen only these few people. It's not that I don't want to save them. Feng Zhou shrugged helplessly. If I could save them, I would have saved them long ago. During the previous fall, in order to ensure the survival rate of the crew as much as possible. While filling the inert gas, the inside plan also opened an independent life support system for the cabins where people gathered. In order to prevent oxygen leakage and affect the inert gas cabin, and to maximize the safety of the crew, the inside plan directly enabled the deadlock mode for each hatch. In this mode, the hatch will be closed as much as possible, and the sliding module of the hatch will be completely destroyed and sealed. After entering the deadlock mode, no system can open the hatch. If you want to open the hatch, you can only use destructive means of violent demolition. And it happens that this means is not available to Fengzhou at present. The hatch is too strong. All the large industrial equipment were sealed in other cabins of the starship. It was not realistic to split open these heavy cabin doors with the light blade in Lian Wenqing's hand. Fengzhou did not hide anything from Gao Qiang and said everything he should and should not say. He stopped talking. Okay, we are here. In front of Fengzhou was a cabin that had been severely deformed. It is conceivable that if the impact on the ground was stronger, Fengzhou would probably be crushed into a meat pie along with this cabin. However, there are not so many buts in the world. Fengzhou was lucky enough to survive in the end. Pointing to the hatch that had cracked due to deformation, Fengzhou reminded Gao Qiang, let's talk about it in advance. I didn't lie to you about what I said before. I do have the pioneer technology that knows the person behind Song Dijun, but the collision was so serious that I'm not sure if it can still be used. If you don't mind, I'll go in. Seeing Fengzhou nagging, Bai Hexia walked up and kicked him on the butt. Hurry up, what are you dithering for? Ouch. Fengzhou stumbled after being kicked and stood up cursing. My dad has never kicked my butt since I was a child. Then you have learned something new today. Gao Qiang rolled his eyes. He always felt that Fengzhou was deliberately delaying time. Is he afraid that if the pioneer technology cannot be used, it will lose its value to him? But it's useless to delay any longer. Under the gaze of Gao Qiang and others, Fengzhou still lowered his body and crawled in through the damaged hatch. Just then, an unstable projection flashed on the cracked console. Commander, I am very relieved to see that you are safe and sound. Gao Qiang led Bai Hexio and the other two into the cabin behind Fengzhou, looking at the projection that appeared and disappeared in front of them. Is this the pioneer technology you mentioned? Fengzhou nodded, yes. At the same time, he was secretly relieved that the inside plan could still run normally, which would increase his value. Due to the terrifying performance of the inside plan, he believed that even if he encountered a permission problem and could not ask for relevant information about Song Dijun, Gao Qiang would not kill him easily. Just as Fengzhou was thinking this way, a bright light suddenly appeared in the inside plan and scanned Gao Qiang's body. What is this? Gao Qiang made a puzzled sound. He was not puzzled about why the inside plan mentioned by Fengzhou wanted to scan him. But the scanning method used by the inside project was inexplicably familiar to him. It was as if he had encountered it somewhere before. But thinking carefully, Gao Qiang couldn't remember it, as if it was just a trivial matter in the past, not worth remembering at all. At this time, the inside project finished scanning. Suddenly, the projection bowed deeply to Gao Qiang. Authorization has been confirmed. Welcome to your visit, Honorary Professor Gao Qiang. Hearing the title of Honorary Professor, Gao Qiang finally realized where he had seen the method used by the inside project to scan himself. This was the scanning method used in the teacher's dormitory of the college. As Gao Qiang's identity was confirmed, the college logo appeared on the terminal of the inside project. Everything proved that the current inside project was actually the product of the college. Gao Qiang turned his head and confirmed with Fengzhou again. Are you sure that this is the pioneer technology? If he hadn't been sure that no one from the college existed in this battle, he would have thought that Fengzhou was just using a name to deceive him. Is it, right? Fengzhou opened his mouth at this moment, looking stunned, and there was some uncertainty in his tone. He didn't understand why Gao Qiang's authority seemed to be higher than his. Because his authority was only to borrow, it sounded several levels lower than Gao Qiang's professor authority. But this is his technology. In front of me, my technology and TR myself? This kind of thing is unacceptable no matter how you think about it. Is there anything I can help you with, honorary professor? Listening to the Inside Plan's enthusiastic reception of Gao Qiang, leaving his master aside, Feng Zhou felt as if an arrow had pierced his heart. It is true that the new generation replaces the old one, even intelligence cannot escape this law. With a sigh, Feng Zhou turned around and told Gao Qiang the information about the pioneers. This should have been a secret about the type of his territory, but now, it depends on how Gao Qiang thinks. Compared with Feng Zhou, who was full of inner drama, Gao Qiang listened to the detailed information about the pioneers from Feng Zhou. He frowned and looked at the Inside Plan, thinking quietly. First of all, according to Feng Zhou's description, the pioneers appeared very long ago, so long ago that there are almost no traces of them in this world. From this aspect, the history of the pioneers should be longer than Gao Qiang's fallen empire. However, the long history is not a standard for measuring strength and weakness. No matter how long the pioneers existed, they were gone after all, while the fallen empire in Gao Qiang's hands is still alive now. Of course, the academy is also alive now. Gao Qiang was very sure that, in his understanding, the academy did not meet the so-called pioneer standards. Because the academy still exists. By the way, have you heard of the academy? Gao Qiang asked Feng Zhou. Hearing about the academy, Feng Zhou showed a confused look and shook his head. I haven't heard of it. If you are talking about a high-level force, I can only say that there are too many high-level forces in the human race, and no one can remember them all. A very reasonable reason. Gao Qiang nodded and stopped dwelling on these small issues. There will be plenty of time to investigate these things later, as for now. Tell me all the information about the Time Lord behind Song Di Jun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 410. Time Lord. Feng Zhou shouted subconsciously. Gao Qiang glanced at Feng Zhou. Why, you look surprised. Ahem. Feng Zhou smiled awkwardly, mainly because I haven't heard of it. So shouldn't I act a little surprised now? Seeing that no one on the field smiled, Feng Zhou waved his hand in a sullen voice. You go on, you go on. Ignoring Feng Zhou, Gao Qiang shifted his gaze to the projection of the Inside Plan. After hearing the questions asked by Gao Qiang, the Inside Project fell into a state of silence, as if it was judging something in the core program. After a while, electronic sound came from below the projection. Permission confirmation, honorary professor. Conforms to file access permissions. Seeing this, Feng Zhou also came forward, looking at the Inside Plan with curiosity and resentment in his eyes. What is curious is what is it that even he does not have the authority to check. Your resentment, on the other hand, your resentment is obviously the pioneer technology that he reproduced, but as a result, his own authority is not as high as that of an outsider. However, under the expectant gaze of several people, the Inside Plan flickered twice. The originally clear projection gradually became a little confusing. Retrieving files. ZZ. After a flash, the projection of the Inside Project disappeared in front of several people, and the control room fell into darkness. What's going on? Gao Qiang asked with a frown. The information about the Time Lords was obviously close at hand, but something happened at this critical moment. Could it be that the Inside Project was damaged because the starship hit the ground? Or maybe, the Time Lord noticed this. After realizing a certain possibility, Gao Qiang's expression changed. For now, apart from their weird and unpredictable abilities, the most difficult thing about the Time Lords is that you never know where they are hiding. Maybe the Time Lord is around a few people at this moment? Ziobai, Zhiro, we are ready to leave here. Gao Qiang called the two of them and wanted to make a long-term plan. At least now inside this starship, the threat seems a bit too high. At this moment, two banging sounds interrupted Gao Qiang's thoughts. Gao Qiang looked up at the source of the sound and found that it was Feng Zhou leaning on the console and slapping him hard twice. Seeing Gao Qiang looking at him, Feng Zhou scratched the back of his head and smiled sheepishly. This is the secret code I set with the Insight project. In the past, if the electrical appliances in the old era were broken, couldn't they be cured by just tapping them twice? So I made an agreement with the Insight project that as long as I tap its server twice, no matter what state it is in, it will definitely enter the power on state. Huan's hero opened her mouth. How is this possible? She likes to play game consoles very much, and she also knows that sometimes certain electrical appliances can be better after a few taps. But this Insight project doesn't look like the kind of electrical appliance that can be photographed, right? But something unexpected happened. With Feng Zhou's 2 slaps, the Insight project actually reprojected the projection. Sorry, Insight plan apologized to several people. Due to unknown force majeure reasons, when I tried to reveal information about the Time Lords, it automatically entered a shutdown state. To avoid this. Next, I will hand over a piece of information to you in a printed form. Please check it in time. After the words of Insight project fell, an A4-sized paper popped up on the desktop of the console. There are dense words written on the paper, but they are not in human language. This is. Gao Qiang stepped forward quickly and took the paper in his hand. He did not understand the meaning of these writings. But these handwritings made him feel familiar again. He has seen this language in Investigator 9999's notebook. This is a word that belongs to time. Gao Qiang held up the paper in his hand and faced the Insight plan. Tell me what is probably recorded on this piece of paper. There is no need to describe the content. The history of time is recorded here, Insight project replied. As your honorary professor, these are all the materials you have access to. In order to ensure that it does not go down due to external forces, please forgive me that I can only use this encrypted text. Putting the paper on the table, Gao Qiang fell into deep thought. Ziobai, do you understand this language? Facing Gao Qiang's question, Bai Hexia shook his head blankly. Huan's hero also spread her hands helplessly. I don't know, Lord. Rather than asking us, you might as well ask Sister Lianqian or Sister Painter. Although I think the ultimate answer is the same. Since Huan's hero said so. Gao Qiang frowned and temporarily gave up on translating this history. He knew that there was a glimmer of possibility in this history that recorded the weaknesses of the Time Lords. However, most people in the territory have an arrogant attitude. They disdain to learn the language and writing of outsiders. This is a lesson learned from previous battlefields. Since you don't understand it and don't bother to learn it, the possibility of translating this history in a short time is not to say almost non-existent, it can only be said to be very few. When facing the Time Lord, the thing that is most lacking is actually time. Got it? An idea suddenly popped up in Gao Qiang's mind. Although he couldn't understand this kind of text, there was a being that could definitely understand it. That was the war game that created battlefields. And if the war game could understand it? Insight project, help me reprint a document. As for the content, just write down what kind of wish I need to make in order to gain the ability to kill the Time Lord. Okay. Insight project did not refuse, but quickly printed out a new piece of paper. However, compared to the history of time, the paper printed this time seemed to be a little too much. Under Gao Qiang's gaze, a long strip of paper moved out of the printing outlet, but it did not stop quickly. The strip of paper was printed longer and longer, until it was enough to roll into a paper roll as high as a person, and then it just stopped. Gao Qiang swallowed his saliva. What is written in it? It is the relevant supplementary regulations inside project replied. If you want to kill the Time Lord through miracle intervention, then this is the best option. Then, the inside project translated some simple content that would not attract the Time Lord's attention. For example, at the beginning and end of the paper, it was written, "Before my death, the Time Lords are not allowed to leave the battlefield in a way." The omitted part is the entry added by the inside project, which is as many as millions. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 411. So complicated? Why not just state that before I die, races related to time must not leave the battlefield in any way? Gao Qiang asked with some curiosity. Because, it's not enough, the inside plan replied, with your current rank, it's not enough, and it won't be enough in the future. Is the bonus of the path not enough to do this? The inside plan said so, and Gao Qiang understood it in his heart. Although the inside plan has added many entries, even if there are more, there is a limit. The gap between finite and infinite is infinite, not to mention that it involves races like time. So Gao Qiang can't use the word all that generalizes infinite magnitude to make a wish for time. But he can find another way through the supplementary explanation of the inside plan. So, if you want to try the ability of the inside plan, should you look for a miracle next? Gao Qiang's eyes involuntarily stared at the land under his feet. But Gao Qiang soon shook his head. This time is different from before. The universal ideal city is a real planet, and it is not so easy to destroy a planet. Even if the fleet is sent to bomb the planet in turn, it can only damage the surface of the planet in the end. The vitality of a complete planet is far stronger than anyone imagines. In other words, if Gao Qiang wants to improve the miracle path, he has to find another miracle. At this time, the advantage of the full map comes in handy. Of course, to use the star map, you have to wait for the error to return, which will take no more than 2 weeks, and there is no rush. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang waved to the ground, and several scarlet roots grew out of the gap, moving the paper roll borne for the Time Lord to Bai Hexio's hands. Looking at Xiaobai, who had to carry the paper roll under the power of the root vine, Gao Qiang smacked his lips. This is also what he has only felt recently. The last time the Black Ball summoned Zinke with himself, he did not follow Gao Qiang to leave the war world. But the root vine that should have disappeared with it was retained, and even had a closer connection with Gao Qiang. As a result, Gao Qiang now has a much looser condition for summoning the root vine. It doesn't have to wait until a dangerous moment. If necessary, you can also temporarily summon the root vine to help do something. But the root vine is a seemingly strange product. First, its strength gradually failed to keep up with Gao Qiang's needs, and then its function plummeted after entering the 6th level battlefield. So many times, Gao Qiang would subconsciously forget its existence. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang reached out and touched the root vine, gently patting the smooth skin of the root vine. The root vine then shrank back into the gap and disappeared without a trace. He glanced at Bai Hexio again. Bai Hexio was standing up a little shaky because he was carrying a paper roll bigger than himself. Okay, let's go. Leave here quickly, so Xiaobai can put down his things. Following the deformed hatch of the control room, several people retreated smoothly. Originally, Gao Qiang wanted to take the inside plan away. But when he turned around, he found that the projection of the inside plan was staring at him meaningfully. Then, it disappeared again in a flash. So is the Time Lord here? After muttering to himself, Gao Qiang gave up the idea of dismantling the inside project now. Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up! Song Dijun covered his head. He didn't know what the voice in his head had just done. He was so anxious to urge him to do something. I know. Stop talking in my head. Song Di-jun slapped his forehead and shouted to a non-existent guy. To outsiders, this was like a madman, and the whole person entered a crazy state. Fortunately, Song Di-jun calmed down quickly, and there was no precedent of his illness in the past. In order to avoid being retaliated by Song Di-jun, the lords around who saw the scene chose to remain silent. As for why Song Di-jun suddenly became quiet, it was naturally because the voice in his mind calmed down. Yes, we still have time. After realizing something, his voice was urgent, but not as anxious as before. Seeing this, Song Di-jun sat back in his chair and whispered, "Is it because of the lord named Gao Qiang? Don't worry, next, I will send the first fleet with the strongest combat effectiveness in my hands to encircle and suppress that guy. By then, as you said, it will be his weakest time, and we will be able to easily take him down." That's right, Song Di-jun sent more fleets to test little by little, just to avoid too much loss on his side. Only when Gao Qiang entered the weakest state, he would give the opponent the most fatal blow like a venomous snake out of the cave. Just when Song Di-jun was full of confidence, the voice in his mind interrupted him. "No. What you have to do now is to destroy the goat eggs in the hands of the Zerg, quickly." Goat eggs? Song Di-jun was obviously stunned for a moment. After all these years of exploration, the Bioconsortium still has some understanding of the Zerg side. Therefore, Song Di-jun also knew what the goat eggs mentioned by the voice in his mind were. That was an item that the Zerg brought into this war game, a genuine miracle item. The goat egg is said to be a relic from an ancient battlefield. It has only one function, which is to force ovulation. This function is simple and not special, and it is not a miracle in theory. But its function is far from as simple as it sounds. According to the information Song Di-jun found out, after touching the goat egg, the creature in contact will quickly enter the ovulation state and ovulate in multiples. The most terrifying thing is that even non-ovulate life forms will enter the ovulation state after touching the goat egg. That thing is completely contrary to the life form. But it is very suitable for the Zerg. On the other hand, in most cases, the Zerg will directly destroy the useless miracles they find. After so many years of Zerg rampage, the miracles in the galaxy have been destroyed. If there is no accident, Song Di-jun thinks that the goat egg stored in a certain Zerg mother should be the only miracle left in the galaxy. But the voice in his mind wanted him to destroy it quickly. "Of course I want to do that too," Song Di-jun said. It was not inconsistent with his idea to weaken the power of the Zerg. "But I can't do it." Song Di-jun directly stated his difficulties. In his opinion, the most difficult thing to kill Gao Qiang was to mobilize a few more fleets. But facing a Zerg Queen Lord, he was at a disadvantage in everything. "I will help you, but quickly," the voice in his mind interrupted him. After hearing this, Song Di-jun raised the corner of his mouth. "I'm waiting for you to say this."